Welcome back to Andersen Acres. We're here with tequila and vodka today because I've got a question. So if you look through some of my shorts, you're going to see some videos of tequila and vodka playing with my younger son, Rowan. You're in the way. But you will see a bunch of those videos showing tequila and vodka. Thank you. Tequila and vodka playing with Rowan, my younger son. He's almost 16, and you'll notice that they do a lot of wrestling, a lot of playing, and sometimes it can look a little sketchy where they're, grabbing him and wrestling him, and they're really roughhousing. So I had, stop it. Stop it. Okay, I love you too. So I had a few questions about that. Why don't you lie down? Yeah, why don't you lie down like a good girl? Anyway, so I had a few questions about that. About, is it safe? Is it fine for them to be doing that? And in the context of vodka and tequila, yes, they are 100% safe playing with him that way. He is not in any danger. He's not actually getting bitten. They're chomping at, he puts a coat on, so they know when he's wearing that coat, they can chomp his arms and he can't get hurt. They actually know that because dogs are smarter than you think. Okay, they're a lot smarter than you think. So he's not getting hurt. He's not in any danger. Hi. So one of the things I was asked is, one, is he in danger? And the other thing I was asked was, how do you do that? How do you play safely like that with dogs this size? And so I'm going to tell you that it has to start very young. Okay, you have to be playing with them like that when they're puppies. Because he's 130 pounds now. Yes, he's very, very big, and he's not 8 months old yet. He is going to be a monster of a dog. Okay, Tequila's going to mature around 110. He's going to mature upwards of 150. So he's a big boy. So a dog this size, if they are not playing nicely that way, someone's going to get hurt. So you have to start when they're puppies. If you wait till they're this big, you're going to have a problem because it's difficult to teach inhibition to a dog. Well, it's not difficult to teach the inhibition. The problem is his size. So he is so big that if he can't regulate himself, if he can't know, this is how hard I bite Rowan, because if I bite him harder, it's going to hurt, or he's going to end the game. If you have to teach him that now, what's going to happen is Rowan's going to end up hurt, because he's so big that over-the-line chomping, we call it chomping, but the over-the-line chomping where it's too rough is going to get really, really rough, really, really fast. So if you want to roughhouse with your Great Pyrenees or your other livestock dogs, your other large dog, first of all, I don't actually recommend it. Rowan does it and Tristan does it, though I know you haven't seen very many videos of Tristan doing it. He doesn't really like to be on camera, so out of respect for that, I don't really film Tristan very much. So you haven't really seen videos of Tristan doing it, but they both play with the dogs like that. My dad plays with vodka like that, okay, where they're wrestling and rolling around on the floor. So the thing is, I don't actually recommend it because if you don't do it right, someone ends up hurt when the dog is this size. But if you are going to do it, you have to start very young. You have to start when they're little tiny puppies. So when they're 25, 30-pound dogs instead of being 130, 150-pound dogs. You have to start young. And the way you do that is you start roughhousing with them, because puppies are like baby sharks. They walk around looking for chomps. Okay, it's just, everyone who's had a puppy knows that the chomps are just something you have to get through. And when you're in that phase and you want to roughhouse, you can roughhouse and they're too small to really hurt you. But that's the time when you want to teach them that inhibition. That don't bite too hard, don't be too rough. You want to be teaching them when they're little. And the way we do that, and the way I've taught my boys to be when the dogs are all little, because Whiskey does it too. They roughhouse with Whiskey all the time. Whiskey's not as big, so it's not as big an issue. But it would be an issue if we didn't start properly. So the way we start is when they're little, I tell the kids, the very second they get rough, you stop the game. You go, okay, that's enough. and you walk away so that the dog understands when I do this, the game ends and doesn't start again for a while. So they have to understand that when they cross that line, the game's done. Okay, and it's tricky with a puppy because that line seems like, well, it doesn't really matter because they're a puppy, but you still have to figure out where that line is, and that line is based on the dog, not based on you. So even though, for example, a puppy that is 25 pounds can chomp me all day and he's not actually going to hurt me. Okay, I don't really care. But I need to care. You have to care. You have to figure out where that line is, even when they're little. It's like at this point, when I get to this point, this puppy is now getting too aggressive. Okay, when he starts to display, instead of play behavior, he kind of crosses that line from play behavior to I'm getting really aggressive. That's when you have to stop the game. The second that aggression happens, and you're talking, these are little puppies, but the second that actual aggression happens, and you can see it, if you know anything about dog behavior, you can watch a puppy go from, oh, I'm a happy puppy, I'm playing, I'm roughhousing, to I'm going to get you. And the very second that switch happens, you have to be like, no, that's it, walk away. I'm not playing with you. Okay, I'm not playing with you anymore. You don't smack the dog or anything, you just walk away. I'm not playing when you're like that. And then you come back later and you start again and you play, and hopefully the play session lasts longer before the puppy hits that point of I'm going to get you. You don't want the I'm going to get you. You want the I'm playing with you. And if you do that when they're a puppy, you can continue to do that when they're an adult. So you absolutely have to draw that line. But it's also important to be drawing that line because now when Rowan is playing with 130-pound Great Pyrenees and they're rolling on the floor and they're wrestling and they're grabbing each other and, Rowan's grabbing his head and rah, 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 and Vodka's chomping his arms and is stealing his boot. I think there's a video where Vodka steals his boot. It's pretty funny. But when they're doing that, Rowan needs to be able to call a stop to the play. It's really, really important that your dog, when you're roughhousing, respects a, that's enough. We're done playing. Even if the dog didn't cross a line, you have to be able to stop the dog from playing, even when you're in the midst of that. So I am going to try to catch a video where Rowan does that, because usually I stop recording because it's hilarious and I'm making shorts. So I'm cutting off the end. I'm cutting off the beginning and the end because it's not as funny. So in the short, you don't normally see the way it starts, which is Rowan starting it. And you don't see the way it ends, which is Rowan ending it. But those two components are really important. It's important that Rowan allows the play to start. Even if the dog is the one who invites Rowan to play, Rowan has to be the one who allows the play to start. And then Rowan has to be the one to stop the play. Okay, he has to be the one to be able to do that. He can't have a dog ignore him. He can't have a 150-pound dog ignore him when he says, that's enough. The game is done. I'm walking away. So it's really important that you are able to do that. And the only way you are going to be able to do that if you do it when the dog is a puppy. So if you want to roughhouse with your dog, which I actually don't recommend because finding that balance is really tricky. We're kind of good at finding that balance. I mean, we've been roughhousing with dogs for generations at our house, in our family. So we're actually really good at that balance. We're kind of raised looking for that balance because we've always done it. My grandpa did it and his grandpa. We all did it. We grew up roughhousing on the floor with dogs and no one ever got hurt. But I don't actually recommend people do that just because it is really kind of dicey if you're dealing with larger breeds. If you miss that, start and stop, I can start it and I can end it. If you can't do that with a 150-pound dog, you're in trouble. Okay, if you can't get the dog to respect that's enough, and you get up and stop playing and the dog stops, then you are in trouble. So I tend to not recommend it even though we do it, and I don't do a lot of videos where I talk about doing that with your dog, with the exception of this one, and this is probably the only time I'm going to do it because people have been asking, and I don't want people to start roughhousing with a dog that doesn't know how to turn it off, where you've never taught them how to turn it off. Because if you don't teach your dog, this is the line, we don't go past that line, if you go past that line, I'm done playing, they don't know that. Okay, they know what you teach them. So you have to have taught them that. So I'm not going to do a whole bunch of videos talking about how to play with your dog like that, because generally I just don't recommend it. It's fun for us because we've always done it. Like, my kids grew up roughhousing with a golden retriever and a German shepherd. Okay, that's how they grew up. And so they know where that line is, and the dogs always knew, even if you're roughhousing with a 4-year-old, the 4-year-old says that's enough, and the game is done. Okay, our dogs have always been raised to know that the game ends when the human says it ends. Not when the dog wants it to end. The game ends when the human says that's enough. You don't continue 1 second past that. And that is just done by reinforcing that as a puppy. So unless you have done that with your puppy, I don't recommend you start doing it now. He's huge. It's more difficult to teach that kind of inhibition when they are as big as they are. Put your tongue in your mouth. You're a good boy. But that is why I don't do a bunch of videos on it. I don't do a bunch of videos on playing with your livestock guardians. I do mostly skills that you should teach them, and, hints and tips for introducing them to your livestock and things like that. I don't do a lot of videos on, hey, let's learn how to roughhouse with our Great Pyrenees today, because it's not something I recommend. If you're going to do it, please start young. Please teach them from a young age that that's what they need to do, and they need to respect the no. They need to respect that's enough. Because if they don't, someone is going to get hurt. That's about it for us here today at Andersen Acres. We'll see you tomorrow.